It's no surprise that sitting down and reading has reached an all-time low, with phones and mindless scrolling taking control of how we use up most of our time. But what else is interesting is that we're all well aware that reading is kind of like lifting weights for your brain that continually stimulates it, but we just choose not to do it for whatever reason. So in my quest to find out why so few of us actually decide to pick up books and why so many of us actually choose to do other activities, I decided to do a case study on myself and what happened to me when I decided to pick up a book a week and how it changed my life. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Irvin Pena, also known as Irv Official, and in my personal quest to find out why so few of us actually decide to pick up books and why so few of us have actually stopped reading as we've gotten older, I decided to run a case study to find out, okay, what actually happened to me as I picked up a book a week, and I figured I'd share it with the rest of the world to let you guys know what I came up with. Studies actually show that 1 in 4 Americans didn't even pick up one book all last year. Less than 50% of Americans actually read for leisure purposes, but it's kind of contradicting because we have CEOs like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates that choose to read anywhere between 4 to 5 books a month. Warren Buffett has come out on the record and said that he decides to read 4 to 5 hours a day and would read more if he had more hours in the day. But why do so few of us, knowing the benefits of it, actually decide to not read as much as the CEO does? You see, the one book that the average American does pick up happens to be a non-fiction. And while there's nothing wrong with that, we have CEOs picking up anywhere between 4 to 5 books a month, which puts them at about 60 books for the year. That's 60 times the amount of reading that the average American does. But why is that? Why is it so hard for us to sit down with the book for 5-10 minutes a day and say, okay, we've already done this, now let's continue on with our day? Why is such a simple task become such a hard and arduous mountain to actually climb? I think it all comes out to 2 reasons. The first reason is, as we're young and as we're kids, we really don't have much responsibilities. There's no bills that are piling up. We don't have to get our kids ready for school if we have any. We don't have to go on about our day to work, earn a living, to then come home to find out that you're on the verge of possibly getting evicted. And then the other side of that is, well, what's the point of learning if I already have my degree? Or what's the point of reading more material if I'm already in a good place in my life? You see, a lot of us felt like we were actually forced to read and really just to absorb as much information as possible so that we can pass, let's say, the finals, so that we can get that one piece of paper that now lets us know that we've actually achieved something, rather than reading for leisure and reading for self-development. But I believe that there's also a third reason of why we don't read as much as we should. And the reason why I include myself in that is because I've been victim to the first 2, but I also want to place myself in the third category before I let you know what happened to me as I decided to pick up a book a week. And that's this. It's just not fun. I mean, let's be honest here. It's way more pleasing, at least satisfying to the mind and to the body, or at least we think it is, to sit down and binge watch our favorite TV show for 8 or 9 hours, which, by the way, when we're done binge watching, it only feels like we were watching for about 45 minutes to an hour. Cue in dopamine. You see, dopamine, simply put, is a feel-good chemical that happens in your brain. And one simple analogy that I can use for all of us to understand this is, think of your brain playing with the score. So it's a 0 if it's a little too difficult for your brain to actually create dopamine or hits of dopamine, which is, again, that feel-good chemical in your mind, or a 1. You see, your brain is always going back and forth with 0s and 1s. Think of the 1 as easy dopamine scores. It just tallies it up, little by little, tallies it up. And so here's what I discovered as I picked up a book a week. It actually felt like I was slowing things down. That's right. It kind of feels contradictory to everything that we're going on in the real world, where everything is fast. We're sending out 100 text messages. We're reading 100 text messages. We're reading comments on our social platforms. We're responding to emails. And at the end of the day, it feels like everything's just going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, except us. You see, in addition to reading a good book, it's actually possible that whatever subject you're actually deciding to pick up on, it can bring an immense inner peace and tranquility within yourself. You see, reading spiritual texts and relational books has actually been proven to lower your heart rate and your blood pressure. How about that for a change? And not to mention that self-help books have actually been shown to help reduce the anxiety levels that people receive on the daily, as well as the mental battles that they go through each and every single day. You see, especially if you're in the business world or if you're an entrepreneur, slowing down your thoughts, especially as you get beat for a deal, or you have a customer walk out on you, or you have the greatest idea in the world that you thought was going to take off and 10x your business, and it just flops before your eyes, well, your mind starts to wonder. So one of the things that I did to combat those thoughts as I picked up a book a week is I set aside 5 to 10 minutes a day. Now, 5 to 10 minutes a day doesn't seem like a lot if you're an avid reader, but if you're someone that's starting out, 5 to 10 minutes a day can feel like an eternity. And so one of the things that I would give myself is alternatives. I'm either going to read 5 to 10 minutes a day and read as many pages as possible, or I'm going to stick to reading 5 pages all day, whether it's 2.5 pages in the morning and 2.5 pages in the evening. Again, that doesn't feel like a lot, but when you're starting out and you're reconditioning your mind that this is the type of dopamine hit that I want, as opposed to getting a dopamine hit when I'm asking for an extra large through the drive-thru, believe me, it starts to go a long way, and compounding becomes your best friend. And not to mention that as you read, you have more ideas. And I think that a big reason for that is because as you're reading books, whether it's the Tony Robbins or the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world, you start to get their perspective on certain situations, and you start to see it through the scope of how they would see problems and how they would see solutions, rather than how you would see that. You see, reading helps you make neurological connections that expands your own experiences. This is important within business and relationships, because ultimately reading helps you collect thoughts that weren't there before and help you make those thoughts your own. Something else that you'll begin to notice, that I personally noticed as I began to pick up a book a week, is my stress levels began to come down. You see, it's actually been proven that 68% of your stress will begin to come down as you're picking up a good book. Part of that is because your blood pressure starts to come down, and also your heart rate starts to come down at a nice steady pace. Your brain starts to get stimulated, which kind of goes back to what we mentioned earlier. That's kind of like pumping iron, but for your mind. Because there's nothing worse than waking up each and every single day, getting lost into the daily tasks and daily activities of what's going to happen today. Am I going to get fired? Am I going to lose this opportunity? Am I going to get dumped? And so on and so forth, right? And so what better way to escape reality in a healthy way than actually picking up a book that ultimately helps you become a better conversationalist, and also someone who's able to articulate information at a higher level. You see, that's something else that I noticed in my quest to pick up a book a week, is I started to become a better conversationalist with people, and I was able to speak with them on different topics and different levels that I wouldn't normally be able to discuss. You see, being able to articulate and being well spoken can be a great bonus in any profession, and knowing that can boost your self-esteem. Reading books is also vital when it comes to you learning not just about different subjects, but also being able to carry different conversations, because your vocabulary becomes expanded. For myself personally, one of the biggest reasons why I personally started reading was because whenever, let's say in high school, I would get asked to read out loud, well, I would fumble and stumble across certain words. So when I first picked up reading, I didn't pick it up just because I wanted to be the smartest in the room. I picked it up just because I didn't want to sound like the dumbest person in the room, if I can just be honest with you. Reading books is also vital for your learning, especially if you're learning a new language, or maybe English isn't your native tongue. Then it allows you to gain exposure to certain words that you wouldn't normally read, and that ultimately enhances not only your vocabulary to speak, but also your vocabulary to read and write. And now, before I cover the last point of what I noticed about picking up a book a week, is if you've gotten up this far into the video, I just want to thank you. And I also want to thank our sponsors over at Amazon's Audible. They've made it super easy and convenient for you guys to pick up a free Amazon audiobook of your choice, as well as enjoying a free month of Amazon's Audible. Again, just for watching this video, you can find that link in the description. The last thing that I noticed when I started to really study and take reading at a higher level more seriously is I started noticing how sharp my focus was, as well as my memory. Because there's nothing worse than walking into the kitchen and then sitting there and then wondering, okay, what am I here for? I mean, has that ever happened to you? Have you ever walked into the kitchen and wondered, okay, why am I standing in this spot right now, and why have I been just staring at the fridge for 25 seconds? I could have sworn I came in here for something, to then all of a sudden realize that, oh, that's right, I didn't come to the kitchen. I actually came to the living room to turn off the TV because it's been on for 2 hours, and I just have it as white noise up to this point. Studies have actually shown that staying mentally stimulated can slow down the progress of Alzheimer's and dementia, since keeping your brain active and engaged prevents it from losing its power. You see, as you're reading a book, whether it's business or whether it's nonfiction or whether it's fiction, your brain has to create what's called pathways. And by pathways, it's creating neurological connections. Simply put, whatever you read on chapter 1, you're now engaging your brain to stabilize itself so that it's able to recapture it and pretty much throw it back out. The way that I see it is this: I personally am not a fan of skim reading, and it's for that reason and that reason alone. Now, I know that there's a lot of top executives out there that they'll say, hey, look, I just skim read to the most important chapters that I feel are necessary. But the way that I see it is every new book is a fresh opportunity, especially if I'm reading that book for the second or third time. One little trick that I like to use is I like to reread books, but I also like to re-engage the book with a different color highlighter. And the reason for that is because if I come in with a different color highlighter, I'm now coming in with a new perspective. You see, if I picked up a book a year ago, I can assure you that there's a million things that have happened to my life personally now that I'm picking that book up again, whether it's a business book, whether it's a social book, or whether it's a financial book. If I'm reading Dave Ramsey, I may not be in the same debt that I was 1 year ago. Now that I'm reading it now, instead of being on baby step 2, maybe now I'm on baby step 6. And so every time your brain is able to create a new pathway, it strengthens the brain the same way that it would any other muscle in the body as you do reps. And what we call reps in the reading world is every page that you turn is considered a rep. So that was my experience with reading books. And look, whether you're reading fiction or nonfiction, at the end of the day, it's all about stimulating your mind. Now, I personally love to read business books, anywhere from Tony Robbins to Grant Cardone to Gary Vaynerchuk to even guys like Tim Ferriss, but that could be different for you. And I attribute a lot of my success to the wide variety, kind of like what you see back there. That's just a little piece of my bookshelf and my book collection, to the type of books that I read. I read anywhere from social all the way up through financial, all the way through business and spirituality, so on and so forth, just because I want to keep a wide range so that if I ever come across anyone, I can be empathetic in the conversations and the things that they're into rather than just the things that I'm into. And there you guys have it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this more intimate video that I did. It's a little bit outside of what I normally post, but I did want to keep it a bit more engaging, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this spin on what happened with me when I decided to pick up a book a week. Let me know what type of books you guys enjoy reading down below. Who knows, maybe we'll start a book club. I mean, you guys let me know. Should we start a book club down below? Let me know what your thoughts are on that. And don't forget, if you enjoyed content like this, let me know down in the comments, as I'll continue to produce as best as I can and keep it as fun and engaging as possible. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below if you found value in this content. Hit that like button because that's apparently what the YouTube algorithm likes. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we have content like this dropping each and every single week. Once again, my name is Irvin Pena, but you probably know me as Irv Official. Until next time, everyone, we'll see ya.